As vaccine mandates become more common all over the world, including the Vatican, religious terminology is being employed to persuade people of faith to overcome vaccine hesitancy. Can a theological case be made for mandatory vaccination? Here to weigh in is retired professor of moral theology at Sacred Heart Major Seminary in the Archdiocese of Detroit, Dr. Janet Smith. Dr. Smith, thank you for being here. I want to begin with a piece you wrote this week in Crisis magazine entitled "The Fake Theology Behind Vaccine Mandates." Now, in your piece, you respond to a professor of bioethics who is also a member of the Pontifical Academy for Life, Teresa Lysett, who in the National Catholic Reporter, of all places, argues that Catholics seeking religious exemptions must follow true church teaching and in good conscience must receive a COVID-19 vaccination. Why is she wrong?
Well, first of all, I mean, the church simply has no authority to teach that. And it hasn't taught that. Even on a casual plane, it hasn't done that. It's given very strong encouragement for us to take it, but it definitely has not said that we have a moral obligation that we must do it and that it's a matter of church teaching that we must do it.
Janet, the Pope has called receiving the vaccine an act of love, and Teresa Lysett and a number of bishops cite the Pope's comments as proof that the vaccines are not only moral, but obligatory. Your thoughts?
Well, as we all know, no Holy Father, qua Holy Father, has any kind of expertise in what vaccines are safe and which are not safe. That's not their area of expertise. The Church very clearly teaches us that there's even what it calls an autonomy to the sciences. They come up with their own conclusions, and the conclusions of the science surrounding the vaccines has been very unsettled ever since they were brought into existence. So the church can only say that we have to act for the common good. Yes, it can teach that authoritatively. Whether or not taking the vaccine would be for the common good is entirely up to question. And in the CDF statement, a note on the issue, it tells us that we are free to seek other alternatives for fighting the COVID disease, the virus, that we don't have to.
Yeah, let me quote that document, because you quote this in your article, and you say this is the most authoritative document we have. And it's the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith's note on the morality of using some anti-COVID-19 vaccines. And you say it doesn't urge people to get the vaccine and makes it clear there's no moral obligation to get it. It reads, at the same time, practical reason makes evident that vaccination is not, as a rule, a moral obligation, and that therefore it must be voluntary. Now, Janet, God and moral obligations are being invoked by everybody, including secular leaders now. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said this last Sunday. Watch.
Yes, I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones, but you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know this. You know who they are. I need you to be my apostles. I need you to go out and talk about it and say, we owe this to each other. We love each other. Jesus taught us to love one another. And how do you show that love? But to care about each other enough to say, please get vaccinated because I love you. I want you to live.
I wonder if that applies to unborn kids in New York. But your reaction to that, Dr. Smith?
No, I don't have any idea what the name of her God is or how she has access to him telling her that. I mean, the fact is, it may be a gift of love not to take the vaccine. If some of the scientists are right who are saying that the vaccines are very harmful in the immediate moment, especially to the young who might contract all sorts of diseases because of taking the vaccine, but they may forever alter our whole immune system. And maybe down the line, we're going to have much healthier immune systems, those who have gotten the COVID and recovered, which is almost everybody who's gotten the COVID has recovered, and those who never get it. We will have possibly have much healthier immune systems than those who get the vaccines. Sometimes I haven't gotten the vaccine yet. I haven't completely ruled it out, but it's kind of a joke. I mean, I'm part of the control group. This is a huge experiment. that we never got through the third phase of testing the vaccine. There have to be some people who don't get it to see how it does. And of course, some scientists are saying that the super spreaders now are those who had the vaccine, that they have a much higher viral load than the unvaccinated. I mean, the incongruence of saying that the vaccinated are at risk because of the unvaccinated, that's a very hard thing to get into your head.
No, well, Dr. Smith, look, neither of us are doctors or scientists or epidemiologists, but I talk to a lot of them. And it is fascinating how the science of this has moved since the first announcement in Wuhan to today. And the science has moved and our knowledge of it has evolved. And that's why I think, look, it's critical. You need to consult with your doctor. Every person is different. There are those who are really elderly and immunocompromised. Then on the other hand, there are people who are very young and strong and have natural immunity in some cases. All of that has to be taken into consideration when you make this decision. And you talked about the viral load. There's that story out of New York. They opened the Broadway production of Aladdin on Tuesday night. Big fanfare. It closed on Wednesday night because despite the complete vaccination of staff, crew, cast, and audience, there was a COVID outbreak. So they shut the production down. So it's a very curious thing that's happening. And again, that has to be noted. And you have to react to that and take that in scientifically and otherwise. Now, in your piece, you point out prudential judgment is needed in applying moral principles to specific policy choices. Why don't we hear more about prudential judgment from the leaders of our church today vis-a-vis vaccines or anything else?
Yeah, or anything else is exactly the point. You remember John Paul II was opposed to us going into the war in Iraq. Now, maybe in retrospect, he was right. But at the time, everybody said, yes, that's his opinion. Okay, making decisions about the temporal realm, the secular realm, is really that, but prudential decisions of the here and now of what to do, whether I personally should take the vaccine. The church cannot make that decision for me. The church cannot make the decision that you should marry this person. It can tell you can't marry some because they don't fit the qualifications of canon law, but the church can never tell you exact person must marry that exact person. Those are prudential decisions that only the person can make. So it's outside of the realm of expertise of the church to talk about what vaccines you must take. It's out of the realm of the church to say that any particular individual must do any particular thing besides that's mandated by God. Mm-hmm. But it's our physical integrity also that's being attacked. Our bodies are our bodies, and they really are for our sake. I mean, the church couldn't tell me that I had to give my kidney to the Holy Father if he needed one. Right? It couldn't do that. That's my decision, and it might be, oh my gosh, he's so important. He's the Holy Father. You've got 2 kidneys. Why wouldn't you give him one? It would even be wrong for the church to put any kind of pressure on any person to do that, because God gave us our organs and our bodies for us. And how I use my body for the common good is that's my decision for all the different values, all the certain duties that I've taken upon, everything that I've done. How can I best perform what the duties that God has asked me to perform? Nobody can decide that for me.
Dr. Smith, you've heard the argument. You know what, and I can hear people in the audience saying it, but wait a minute, by taking this vaccine, you're protecting all the lives you encounter throughout the day, that you are giving protection to friends, older relatives, classmates, everybody. Why is that thinking off?
Well, I mean, you just gave an example of Broadway opening, and we see all these people in the hospital that have been vaccinated, and they're getting the COVID anyway. And so you're saying the science is so unsettled on this that it seems to me it's very unfair to tell people that the science is settled and you must do what science says. I mean, I grew up with a formaldehyde generation, and there's all sorts of times when science really thought it knew what it was supposed to do. And then, sometime later, of course, cigarettes were once considered to be absolutely safe, safe.
Healthy.
So, yeah. And they've so many things that they've lied to us about in the last 2 years about COVID. We now find out that there was no scientific basis at all for a 6 feet social distancing. We've seen our grandparents die without any visitation in nursing homes. And these are the people I'm expected to trust. I just don't see it. I don't see why I should trust them. I'm listening to other equally credentialed doctors, and not just one crank, not just one off the reservation doctor, but large groups of them. Anytime you consult an expert, you have to listen to see if are there any other experts, and why.
Yeah.
Why should I believe this one versus that one? And it's not majority. Don't tell me it's majority, because the majority has often been very sadly wrong.
Yeah, I also think we all have to have a grave dose of humility when it comes to this COVID pandemic, because so many have been wrong, and the science has evolved and moved so fast that you can't be too definite, because you may be proven wrong tomorrow, as we're seeing before our eyes. The Vatican has mandated, Dr. Smith, that anyone entering the Vatican must show proof of vaccination. Now, there is no mention here of a religious exemption. I mean, aborted fetal tissue was used in the research and in some cases the production of these vaccines. What do you make of the fact that the Vatican fails to mention any sort of religious exemption?
Sadly shocking, as well as thinking that the main altar in St. Peter's hasn't been used for, a year and a half or something. These things are mystifying in the extreme. That there's so many priests who are so ready to perform the sacrament, so ready to attend people, and are being told by their bishops, first of all, that they couldn't do it during the height of the pandemic, the lockdown, and now they can't do it unless they're vaccinated, even if they make it known to everybody that they're not vaccinated, and people are happy to have their services anyway. But it's as if the immortal soul is no longer their chief concern, that the chief concern is our physical health. And good Catholics love to be healthy. And that's the other huge thing, of course, is that they haven't been telling us how to do preventative measures from getting the COVID. There's lots of them. And those who have been doing them are feeling very good and very healthy. A lot of them have never gotten the COVID because they've taken precautions.
As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Smith, the Canadian Archdiocese of Moncton has rescinded a policy that required all Catholics wishing to enter church buildings to show proof of vaccination. Your thoughts on this mandate coming from a Catholic archbishop? Now, he rescinded that order, as we reported earlier.
Well, as you said, it's in place in the Vatican, so I don't know why we have to be so concerned about someone who's rescinded it. But yeah, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see policies in place, policies rescinded. I don't see why we aren't basically back to business as usual. And people taking precautions, if you're sick, stay home. If you're concerned about spreading it or getting it, if you think wearing a mask helps, wear it. If you think wearing a mask does not help, don't wear it. I mean, I just can't see that we have really solid science on any end of this thing, except if you're sick, stay home. Get your vitamin D, get outside, take your zinc, take your quercetin, take all these things. And stay healthy as much as you possibly can. And when you're not, stay home.
Dr. Janet Smith, thank you so much.
I'm not a doctor. Yeah, I'm not a doctor.
I know you're a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you for your insights. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.